Manga has always been political. Western readers just never realized it. I'm going to correct you right there, right now. There's a difference between being political and being ham fisted about your politics. The example I use all the time is Star Trek. Star Trek was very much trying to push the socialist utopia ideal. And yet, there's plenty of hardcore conservatives that like Star Trek. Why is that? Because it was a good series, good characters, good story, good writing. Whenever there was a moral dilemma, they showed both sides of it. And even if you disagreed with the side that came out on top, you could at least say, oh, that gave me something to think about. Nowadays, there's no nuance. They just say, oh, you either believe exactly like we do, or you are literally worse than Hitler. Actually, let's talk about a manga example of this. Before we even get to the ones that the article is going to mention, because some of the quote-unquote political manga that they talk about, oh, look, it's a right-wing message. Yeah, you don't see that in the West anymore, do you? But that's a different story. One of my favorite manga is Coppelion, and I vehemently disagree with the underlying message that manga is trying to push. Yet I still really like that manga. Why is that? Because it's a good story with good characters that go through good adventures and trials and suffering. The villains, they have the whole range of villains. You got the tragic villains that never wanted to do this but were forced into it. You got the ones that were basically made insane. And then you got the irredeemable, just absolute asshole villains. Like that. God, it was just so good. Even though I disagree with the overarching message that manga was pushing, which was basically nuclear energy is the devil. You guys know my opinion on that and how I disagree. I could understand why Japan might feel differently, let's just say. I still disagree, yet I can still enjoy it, because if that story was being written by a Westerner, every freaking page would be lecturing about how nuclear power is evil, and if you feel otherwise, you literally support genocide and you're the worst person ever. That's why manga is better than the shit the West puts out. First off, they have representation on both sides. While they do have some obviously heavily political, like left-wing stuff, they also have right-wing stuff represented, which you don't get in the West anymore. And then whenever they do have a political point, it's not the focus of the story. That's what the Puritans on both the right and the left will never understand. And that's why they will always fail. If you want to do like edutainment, right? If you want to actually make something that pushes some ideology, again, look at Star Trek. Star Trek never missed an opportunity to shill how great of a socialist utopia that the Federation was. But that wasn't the focus of the story. It was like world building for the most part. The Puritans focus on pushing their ideology first, and then if they feel like it, maybe they'll make it entertaining later. Maybe. It's not important though, because pushing the narrative is what the only thing they care about, right? That's literally the only thing they want to do is push the narrative. When Japan does it, they have a good story, good characters, good art. That's important too. And then in the background, they drop hints as to like, the political message that the mangaka is trying to push. And they're usually so subtle that you don't even notice unless you look for them. And sometimes they do such a good job. Like I've seen so many anime about the Japan's fucking civil war, that they actually have gotten me to after the episode's done, I boot up my fucking browser and I start looking up some of those characters and events because they got me curious about them. That is how you properly try to educate an audience in your entertainment. You make something fucking awesome. You make an awesome character that's based on a historical figure, and you make them so good and likable that by the end of the episode or the series, you get the audience looking up the real life person. Like, wow, was this person really that cool? I want to read their story. But you don't get that here in the West. Here in the West, all you get is, I'm going to tell you what to think. And if you disagree, you are literally worse than Hitler and you deserve to go to Happy Fun Time Camp. And then they fucking wonder why no one watches their shit and why everyone goes to manga instead. So now that you know my views on this, let's read this ignorant drivel. While many claim that manga's popularity is due to its lack of politics, a closer look reveals that politics are ingrained into the medium. Just wait till you see what they consider politics. When Marvel Comics introduced a version of MODOK modeled after then-President candidate Orange Man, many were quick to contrast this to the perceived apolitical nature of manga. A common refrain among Western manga fans is that the medium's success is tied to its lack of apparent political messages. Despite this, nothing could be further from the truth. A closer look at many of Japan's most influential manga reveals a deep well of political themes, messages, and imagery. Okay, let's see what they use as examples, because I'm not going to disagree with this. They do have politics in their work just like we do, except they do it right, like Star Trek did. Far from a new development, politics have been present in manga since the medium's earliest days, with classics like Kimba the White Lion, Blackjack, and Phoenix. Osamu Tezuka is widely regarded as the father of manga. However, it's Astro Boy that is truly his defining work. Somehow combining the cute cartoons of Disney and the brave heroics of American superheroes, Astro Boy is considered one of the very first modern manga. It was also unapologetically political, known for being anti-war and pro-environment. Tezuka weaved these themes into Astro Boy. Whoa. I'm going to have to stop you right there. Every single time we mention that, all this anti-war and pro-environment messaging is too political, whenever our side says that, they counter with, that's not a political stance. That's just being a decent person. Don't they always do that? And now when it's convenient for them, oh, look, this is a political message. It's funny how suddenly it becomes political now, right? But when we point out when they're doing it, oh, it's not political. Yeah, fuck off. Until we get some consistency from you idiots, I don't want to talk about it. Now, for manga fans who think these themes are too subtle or too general to be really qualified as political, one story should remove all doubt. 1969's The Angel of Vietnam by Tezuka sees Astro protecting a Vietnamese village. You know what else had messages like this? MASH. How many of you guys watched MASH? Yeah, it's a comedy. And in MASH, they routinely, they had themes like this. And yet somehow they were still able to make an entertaining show. It's almost as if they put the entertainment first and then they were like, oh yeah, let's put a few messages in there. See, this is where the West fucks up. It's not about whether or not something is political. It's that when good stories do politics, the politics are like a background detail. It's not the focus. They focus first on telling a good story, having good characters. When the West does it, the politics are first, and they have no good story. They have no good characters. It's just shit. It was shit when the right-wing SJWs did it, and it's shit when the left-wing ones do. Quote-unquote entertainment designed for the sole purpose of preaching at you is always shit. One well-known creator clearly influenced by the work of Tezuka is acclaimed director Hayao Miyazaki. And now you notice that right now all they're talking about is normie anime and manga. Yeah, it's like I remember before anime became as popular as it is now, you had people that the only anime they watched was Miyazaki movies. And they claimed, "Oh, I'm such a weeb, I'm such an anime fan," and literally all they watched was Miyazaki movies. Now that'd be like saying, "Oh, I'm such a fan of American cartoons, but all you watch are Disney movies." Yeah, it doesn't count. You're a fan of Miyazaki, you're a fan of Disney, but you sure as fuck aren't a fan of anime/animation. Just that one specific one. Though most Western readers know him for his breathtaking films, he was also a mangaka for quite some time. His magnum opus, Dasuka of the Valley of the Wind, contains many of the themes which have defined Miyazaki's career. Much like Tezuka, Miyazaki used the medium of manga to portray the futility of war and the importance of respecting the environment. Who's actually disagreeing with that, though? The series follows the eponymous character in a post-apocalyptic world destroyed by pollution. Far from something easy to ignore, the themes of environmentalism and humanity's folly in trying to control the environment are absolutely vital to the story. Oh, so you mean like what humanity is trying to do now with all these green initiatives? Oh, to ignore the dire political message of Nazca is to basically not engage with the story at all. But it's not political. It's just being a decent person, guys. So next time you complain about this and they say that these messages are not political, remind them of link them to this article. No. Your side says this is political. So which is it? Is it political or is it not? Fuck off. In a similar vein are the politics of cyberpunk classic Akira. I don't understand why the movie was as popular as it was. They cut out so much. It was, oh man, I don't know what to make of that thing, but I guess it looked good, which is why everyone liked it. The manga by Katsuhiro Otomo was a critique of Japanese society in the 80s. The manga setting Neo Tokyo is a city overrun in equal measures with gang violence and dangerously militarized police force. A key plot point in the manga is the Japanese government's building of an Olympic stadium. Given the absurd levels of poverty and destitution the people of Neo Tokyo face, the obvious conclusion readers are meant to draw is the stadium is a waste of money. I think we can agree with that, yes. Beyond the jab at differing priorities of a government and its people, Akira also overtly tackles hot-button issues such as youth violence, economic inequality, and police brutality, while also having good characters and a good story. Are you guys catching on to what the West is missing yet? All three of these classic manga used then current events in the Japanese political landscape of their time to craft impressive and epic stories that are still influencing mangaka to this day. Something you're never going to hear about the political garbage coming out of Marvel and DC right now. They will just be quickly forgotten and relegated to the dustbin of history. Looking more towards the present, though, it should be equally obvious that manga creators are still using politics and social change to inform their works. And they're doing it in a much better way than the West is. Even when they get overtly political, as long as they can maintain an entertaining story with good characters, most people overlook it. Like, again, Capellion. I disagree almost completely with the main point the mangaka is trying to push, yet it's still one of my favorite manga. It's amazing how that can happen. You don't see that in the West. Because while they're trying to push that point, never once do they say that people who disagree are literally Hitler. While some critics of the Western industry have viewed the recent inclusion of more alphabet soup characters as a reason for the declining sales of traditional superhero comics, this is odd considering the manga industry, while far from perfect, is often on par or even ahead of the curve, including characters in a wide variety of sexualities and genders. Okay, now these idiots are even using our own arguments. Where the fuck were they when we were telling the West, why don't you make these characters right like Japan does? No one had a problem with these alphabet soup characters that Japan makes because they know how to make good characters. When Japan makes a gay character, they make a character who is gay. When the West makes a gay character, being gay is all there is to the character. Like, that's it. The entire character is gay. In 1994, Sailor Moon famously premiered a heroic lesbian couple in Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune. And everyone liked it, except for the Puritans. Ghost in the Shell's Motoko Kusanagi has either been a lesbian or at least bisexual since her first appearance in 1989. Hunter x Hunter features an entire arc focusing on series co-protagonist Killua reconnecting with his trans sister Aluka. One Piece has just recently introduced Yamato, who is assigned female at birth but uses male pronouns, which are respected by the main cast. How many more times are we going to have to explain that character to these idiots? She doesn't identify as a man. Doesn't she just use those pronouns out of respect for her father? But she herself identifies as a woman. She knows what she is. These guys are literally making shit up. Yeah, they have no fucking clue what they're talking about, but they're total real anime fans, guys. Yeah, I've been a lifelong weeb. Yeah, Attack on Titan also features several prominent Alphabet Soup characters, including non-binary Hanji Zoe and a lesbian couple of Ymira and Krista. You know what else Attack on Titan features? Nazi imagery. Yeah, isn't it funny that the same people who were shitting on Attack on Titan for being right-wing Nazi propaganda a few months ago are now holding it up as a bastion of Alphabet Soup representation? They literally can't make up their fucking minds, man. But then again, they are NPCs. They just do whatever they've been programmed to do, even if their new programming is completely at odds with yesterday's programming. So Attack on Titan alone should be enough to dispel any notions that manga is some mythical apolitical medium. Considering that you guys spent like the past year bitching about how political it was, for the other side. yeah, sure. The hit series prominently features themes of nationalism, militarization, and how members of oppressed groups become radicalized by their oppressors. Oh man, if only you guys learned from that lesson. Yeah, given Japan's complex relationship to World War II and Nazi Germany, the German-inspired setting and constant references to World War II imagery throughout Attack on Titan are inherently political in nature, though what this series is using these images to say is still a hotly debated topic. Beyond the blatant politics of Attack on Titan, though, the last 2 decades of manga have been flush with political theming and imagery. Considering a Middle Eastern flair, it's difficult to not see Full Metal Alchemist Ishbalan conflict as analogous to the war in Iraq. One Punch. Wait. So if you have any Middle Eastern setting, then it's automatically you're trying to make a point about a real life war in the Middle East. Now, this is the kind of shit that makes people realize academia is a fucking joke. Now, hasn't it happened in the past where some professor read too much, said, oh, this is what the author meant by this, and the author flat out said, no, that's not. And they still said, yes, it is. One Punch Man is about the hollow and unfulfilling nature of a work-focused society. There's a little bit of that. My Hero Academia explores the pressures put on young adults to be exceptional and how that pressure can ultimately hurt and alienate those who struggle to live up to it. You got the completely wrong message from that, but I can see it if you put on like 3 lenses. Demon Slayer uses its Taisho era setting to examine the impact of modernization and how people adjust to a rapidly changing world. That's a common theme throughout most Japanese media. Because when the West came in and kicked down their walls, metaphorically, because, they're surrounded by water, they didn't need walls, I guess. That caused a massive culture shock. Like, they basically got to go through the entire Industrial Revolution almost overnight. So, yeah, that would cause some cultural divides. It would. Like, that is a pretty important theme. Though some of these political messages and themes are easy to ignore for less politically savvy readers, other manga are much more direct. While some readers were complaining about Marvel turning a politician into a supervillain, Death Note was preparing to do the exact same thing with the exact same politician. The series creators returned to the world of Death Note with the Akira story. A one-shot prominently featured a blatant parody of Orange Man receiving the titular Death Note, being too cowardly to use it. Cowardly, or maybe he actually had principles, but I don't know. Considering that Death Note really should have ended when L died, I don't really consider anything that happens after that to be canon anyway. Like, none of that shit is serious, so Trump thing is great. Oh, did they actually do it in a good way? Yeah, that's I would trust Japan to insert politics into something and do it right. See, and here's the best counter to this article. When Japan brings political themes into their manga, they do it in a way that it's actually still good and entertaining for both sides. That is a skill that the West can't do. Like there is hardly anybody with any talent left in the West, at least in the mainstream. I wouldn't trust any of them. All of these examples should be more than enough to display the manga is just as political as anything published by Marvel or DC. All right. Yeah, that's right. Manga that has characters that are gay is just the same as Marvel and DC, where being gay is the entirety of the character. Yep. That's the argument they're making right now. It's important to note that even though series with less obvious politics are still political, works like Dragon Ball might not be so forward with their politics, but they still exist in political context and still convey political messages, whether intentional or not. See, whether intentional or not, see, that's what I was talking about. These fucking fart-sniffing academics will read too much into something, and even if the author says that's not what he meant, like, well, you subconsciously meant it. Like, no, you're just a fucking idiot. Like, you need to accept that. You're just a moron. You're not as smart as you think you are. For better or worse, all media is political in that all media reflects the values and beliefs of the culture which created it. What's that got to say about American culture, where everything they create is shit now? And these themes are woven into the very DNA of their series, saying that manga is political isn't just blatantly wrong, it's disrespectful to the rich and textured worlds created by Japan's greatest mangaka. No, you want to know about what's disrespectful to the rich and textured worlds created by Japan's greatest mangaka? It's comparing them to this surface level garbage being shat out by the West. Once again, you're comparing the good, well-written alphabet soup characters in manga, where being an alphabet soup identity is just a small part of the character, to the garbage being shat out by Marvel and DC, where being alphabet soup is just a gimmick to get more sales from media attention, and that's all there is to the character. I can't imagine anything that could be more disrespectful than that.